Forest spirits. Dawn illuminated the dense forest canopy with muted gray hues filtering through thick leaves. A faint mist wove around tree trunks, drifting like ghostly shrouds in the cool air. The smell of moist earth and decaying foliage filled Megan's senses, interrupted only by distant irregular bird calls that sounded hesitant, almost unsure. Silence heavily enveloped the area, broken sporadically by the crack of twigs and rustling unseen creatures just beyond sight. Megan paused at the forest edge, her boots lightly sinking into the muddy ground. She carried a small backpack, a GPS device, and a compact notebook in her coat pocket. Her gaze swept the scene, quickly noticing subtle anomalies. The typical signs of wildlife tracks, broken branches, chewed leaves were there, but something seemed unusual. She crouched, examining the ground carefully. A series of shallow impressions drew her attention to uniform, overly precise. The footprints weren't typical animal tracks. She knelt down, brushing aside leaves and dirt to examine them more closely. The marks were narrow, nearly humanoid in shape, but unevenly spaced, as if hurriedly left in a panic. Nearby, faint soil disturbances indicated a struggle or hurried retreat. Her brow furrowed, heart pounding with concern and curiosity. She pulled out her notebook, sketching the impressions and making notes, her hands trembling slightly, despite her effort to stay calm. A strange unsettling scent wafted into her nostrils, faint but unmistakably unnatural. Initially, she thought it was human, but it carried a chemical tang that didn't belong in this pristine environment. She inhaled again, trying to identify the mixture. The smell stubbornly lingered, disturbing the natural musk of moss and damp wood. An unnatural presence had disrupted the peaceful harmony of the forest. Her eyes shifted toward the denser woods where shadows grew heavier and trees became more tangled. She paused, instinct warning her to proceed with caution. This was no ordinary disappearance. Something about the scene urged her to investigate further and reveal what lay hidden beneath the serene canopy. From her vantage point, she noticed a faint trail leading deeper into the thicket. Footprints followed it, gradually disappearing into the undergrowth. She straightened up, brushed dirt from her knees, and unzipped her backpack to grab a small flashlight and gloves. The flashlight was essential, as morning shadows lengthened with the sun struggling to pierce the dense leaves. The gloves would prevent contaminating any potential evidence. Cautiously, Megan moved into the forest, each step steady yet silent. The trees appeared to observe her, branches creaking softly, leaves rustling gently. The heavy silence pressed on her ears, broken only by distant insect hums stirring alive. Every sound was sharper, every movement more noticeable in the tense atmosphere. She kept her gaze alert, scanning the ground and branches for clues about what had happened here. Suddenly, her eyes spotted a smear on a nearby tree's bark, dark, streaked, resembling dried blood, but too faint and uneven to be definitive. She approached carefully, observing how the mark looked smeared as if someone was dragged or fell against the trunk during a struggle. Her heartbeat sped up. Could this be linked to the child's disappearance? Might it indicate violence or desperation? She knelt once more, examining the stain more carefully. It didn't match animal tracks, but was too faint to confirm human blood without testing. She took a sterile swab from her kit, cautiously collecting a sample while avoiding additional disturbance. Her thoughts raced through possible scenarios: an abduction, an escape, or something darker, an encounter with someone wanting to remain hidden. A sudden movement in her peripheral vision caught her attention, an indistinct shadow darting between the trees. Her breath caught, and she held still, listening intently. For a moment, she believed she saw a figure, human or animal, slipping silently into the bushes. Her hand tightened around her flashlight, but hesitation made her pause. The forest's unpredictability was perilous. Chasing after fleeting shapes could ensnare her. She exhaled slowly, calming her racing mind. It was clearly a complex situation. She had to trust her training, instincts, and remain vigilant. The lingering scent hinted at something unnatural, and the mystery here was far from resolved. The woods seemed to murmur secrets, and Megan knew uncovering them would require her full attention. As she pressed deeper into the dense underbrush, the trail became less clear, but her senses grew sharper. She observed a faint smear on a nearby tree bark, dark, streaked, resembling a struggle or someone being dragged or falling. Her grip on the flashlight tightened. She needed answers quickly. The scent, footprints, and blood-like stain all indicated something more sinister than a mere disappearance. Her gaze scanned the surroundings, looking for additional clues. The trail was weakening, but her instincts suggested she was near something significant. She pulled out a small evidence collection device from her pocket and carefully swabbed the stain, sealing the sample. Her thoughts raced: kidnapping, escape, or something unknown. Signs indicated violence, urgency, and a hidden threat just out of view. A quick movement out of the corner of her eye caught her attention. A shadow darted silently between the trees. Her breath caught, and she froze, her heart pounding. She lifted her flashlight to target the movement, but the figure, if it was real, vanished almost immediately. Her muscles tensed up, alert to the forest's unseen watchers lurking in silence. She exhaled slowly, steadying her nerves, knowing danger lurked here. Her instincts told her this was no ordinary situation. The strange smell, signs of a struggle, faint blood stains, all indicated something more menacing. Megan had to investigate further to uncover the truth beneath the deceptive tranquility of the trees. With renewed resolve, she moved on, following the trail deeper into the unknown as shadows lengthened and thickened around her, warning to proceed carefully. Every step grew heavier, weighted not only by her mission, but by the feeling she was only beginning to uncover a far bigger, more threatening mystery. An unseen force watched her every move as her exploration into the forest's secrets had just started. Megan stopped at the muddy clearing's edge, scanning faint impressions pressed into the damp soil. Dawn's first rays pierced the thick canopy, casting shifting shadows across the forest floor. Dew droplets sparkled on blades of grass as she crouched to examine the fresh footprints. Her fingers brushed away a stray leaf, revealing a narrow, hurried trail zigzagging through the ground. Each step seemed to whisper a quick, unspoken story, perhaps a small traveler fleeing from unseen danger. Nearby, Yuki's body tensed, nose twitching with increasing urgency as he sniffed the air. His gaze darted between the trail and the trees around, ears perked. The dog's snout wrinkled, sensing an unfamiliar scent that disturbed the peaceful dawn. Megan's gaze lifted to scan the forest edge where shadows mingled with morning fog. The footprints appeared fresh, likely after recent rain, though some disturbed areas indicated deliberate track concealment. She leaned closer, tracing the uneven impressions with her fingers. her brow furrowed at the irregular spacing and faint smudges. A metallic scent hung in the air, unnatural and distinct from the earthy smell, raising her alertness. She sniffed cautiously, wondering if this chemical odor was linked to the earlier strange scent or a false trail laid to mislead. Yuki softly barked, breaking her focus, his nose pointing to a patch of disturbed ground where the tracks abruptly ended. Megan's stomach tightened as the trail disappeared into thick bushes with disturbed soil and broken branches around. No other signs of passage were visible. Her eyes narrowed as she examined the sudden halt. Someone or something deliberately blocked the path, replacing it with an eerie silence. She straightened herself, brushing dirt from her knees, her mind racing. The natural pattern of footprints had been disrupted, an obvious attempt to hide evidence. What caught her attention most was the abrupt change in odor. The chemical smell was stronger here, more intense, almost tangible in the cool air. It seemed to come from a specific direction, guiding her further into the undergrowth. Her instincts flared with suspicion. Yuki softly growled, sending low warning vibrations through his chest. His body was tense and poised to move. Megan reached into her pack to grab a small vial of scent markers and a portable detector. She knelt down again, pressing the device to the ground. The readings flickered chaotically before stabilizing, confirming her fears: unusual chemicals out of place in the wilderness. Her mind raced quickly. The trail had been purposefully covered, and this strange chemical signature suggested another lead. She paused momentarily, weighing her choices. Following the new scent could lead into a trap, but ignoring it might mean losing the trail entirely. Her intuition urged her to trust her dog's instincts, though caution advised restraint. The surrounding woods seemed alive with silent threats, shadows lengthening as dawn approached. Yuki's nose twitched before he barked sharply, signaling her with an authoritative gesture. Megan grasped her gear tighter, carefully signaling him to stay close but not too near, then headed toward the faint scent. Her steps were deliberate, ears alert to every crack of a twig and rustle of leaves. The chemical smell intensified, leading her deeper into the tangled brush. The terrain grew more challenging, roots protruded from the ground, fallen branches cluttered her path. Her flashlight's beam cut through the darkness, revealing patches of disturbed soil and scattered debris. Passing a fallen log, she noticed faint smudges on its bark, possible signs of a struggle or hurried passage. Her gaze scanned the scene carefully, noting every detail. Suddenly, the trail sharply turned right, marked by scattered broken twigs and displaced leaves indicating recent activity. Megan crouched down, inspecting the ground closely. The footprints were fewer and more erratic, suggesting an effort to stay hidden. The chemical smell grew stronger, now with a faint metallic note that made her skin crawl. She pressed her hand onto the damp soil, studying how the scent spread. It was deliberate. Someone had created a decoy, but the chemical traces revealed recent movement. Yuki whined softly, nose to the ground, sensing the shift. Megan cast a quick look behind her, her heartbeat quickening. The forest seemed to pause, shadows flickering subtly at the edges of her vision. A sudden gust carried the strange chemical smell deeper into the woods, heightening her awareness. Someone was intentionally manipulating her, either to mislead or entrap her. Her fingers hovered over her radio, contemplating calling for backup or trusting her instincts alone. The persistent chemical odor was unsettling, indicating deliberate interference. She took a deep breath to steady herself. The evidence suggested a carefully planned deception. Whoever was behind this knew her tactics and tendencies. A faint crackle from the underbrush broke the silence, an almost imperceptible disturbance. Her muscles tensed, all senses on high alert. The forest around her seemed to throb with unseen danger. She proceeded cautiously, each step intentional, every breath steady. The smell intensified, directing her toward an unseen target, an unknown slipping just beyond reach. As she moved forward, the terrain became more dangerous. Roots and fallen branches threatened her stability. Her flashlight revealed traces of disturbed soil and torn leaves, indicating recent activity. The scent guided her past a fallen log with faint marks on bark, suggesting hurried movement or a struggle. Her heart raced as she considered the significance. The trail sharply turned again toward a small clearing. Here, the chemical smell was strong, almost suffocating. Megan paused, observing the empty space. No footprints or recent signs, only an overgrown patch of earth, quiet and undisturbed. Her eyes fixed on a shimmering fragment among the leaves, a torn piece of cloth partly hidden beneath branches. It was clearly part of the child's attire. A surge of panic arose inside her. Her gaze became more intense as she examined the surroundings. The trail had led her into a trap, an intentional deception meant to mislead or lure her into an ambush. The forest appeared to hold its breath, awaiting her next move. She realized she was no longer just following footprints, she was uncovering a complex web of deception. Her hand reached instinctively for her radio, but then paused. She had to choose, withdraw and reconsider, or move forward into the unknown. The chemical odor lingered, a haunting sign of orchestrated interference. Her mind raced. Who was behind this? What was their real purpose? The clues pointed to someone with deep forest knowledge, intent on a dangerous game. Taking a deep breath, Megan steadied herself. She stepped back carefully, avoiding the torn fabric, and looked beyond the shadows. The surrounding woods were alive with subtle signs, faint rustling, suggesting unseen watchers. She understood she had uncovered only part of the truth. This was both a trap and a message. The person behind it was confident, maybe even observing her. Her determination solidified. She would not be controlled. She veered away from the clearing, choosing to go around, searching for a different path that might lead to the real trail. Her senses heightened, each step taken with purpose. The chemical smell still lingered, but now she recognized its goal: to mislead and distract. The forest quiet was misleading. Shadows shifted as she moved, the air thick with tension. She remained alert for fresh clues: broken branches, displaced stones, recent footprints. Her instincts indicated the true trail was beyond this trap, waiting to be found. Suddenly, she noticed faint footprints heading toward a more dense area of the woods, partly hidden by undergrowth. She approached cautiously, observing the uneven pattern. Someone had attempted to conceal their tracks. The chemical scent grew stronger here, almost overwhelming. Her pulse quickened as she neared the true source. Moving into deeper shadows, Megan recognized her perspective on the case had changed. The trail was no longer clear-cut. The false leads and manipulations pointed to a clever adversary who knew her well. Her earlier assumptions about the straightforward route were mistaken. Now she understood the larger scheme, a game of deception where she had to stay ahead. The path brought her to a small overgrown clearing. The chemical smell was intense, but no recent footprints were visible. Instead, among the leaves, she spotted a torn piece of fabric belonging to the child's clothing. Her stomach tightened. Signs of deception and misdirection suggested her target was nearby yet trapped. She paused to listen, sensing danger lurking beyond the silence. Someone was watching, waiting for her next move. The false trail had lured her into security, but her determination to uncover the truth grew stronger. Megan retreated carefully, planning her next step, knowing the real path was hidden just out of sight. The chemical scent still lingered, a reminder of ongoing deception. She tightened her grip, prepared to face whatever awaited her. The woods held many secrets, and she was determined to reveal them before time ran out. Megan moved carefully through thick underbrush, her eyes watching the overgrown clearing as sunlight filtered through the treetops. The subtle smell of burnt wood hinted at recent activity nearby. Her footsteps were quiet on tangled roots and fallen leaves, each move purposeful and silent, fueled by the urgency of her search. The heavy silence was broken only by distant leaf rustling and a bird's occasional call, reminding her she was not alone. She knelt next to disturbed soil, her gloved fingers clearing away twigs and moss. In the muddy ground, she saw a small footprint, no bigger than a child's, pressed hurriedly into the earth. Its shape was uneven, toes slightly spread, with smudged edges suggesting a frantic run or a stumble. Megan frowned as she examined it closely, noting its irregularity and rapid impression. She took out her notebook, recording measurements, the print's angle, and distinctive marks, trying to piece together a timeline from these subtle clues. A torn strip of fabric caught her eye, snagged on a jagged branch nearby. Its pale fibers were frayed and ragged, ripped forcefully. The edges appeared torn in a struggle, perhaps during a desperate escape attempt. She carefully unfolded a corner to inspect dirt smudges across its surface. The fabric showed faint traces of mud and grass, indicating recent tearing or dragging. Holding it up, she scanned the nearby foliage for other clues, yet the area revealed no additional fabric or obvious signs of recent passage. A subtle air shift drew her attention. Smoke, not fresh, but recent enough to suggest a small fire nearby. She inhaled sharply, trying to determine the direction. The scent drifted from the west, where the trees grew denser and shadows pooled beneath their thick branches. The subtle smell lingered, prompting her to stay cautious. Maybe someone had been here temporarily, or the child was nearby during the fire's glow. Her instincts urged her to stay alert. Suddenly, movement darted at the corner of her eye, a swift, bulky shift beyond the trees. Megan froze, sharpening her senses as she tried to see through the tangled leaves. The disturbance was too big for a small animal, too deliberate for a breeze. Something was out there, watching her or just passing by. Her heart raced. She reached for her radio, but hesitated, knowing silence was essential. The forest remained quiet, filled with tension. Megan quickly analyzed every detail: the footprint, the torn fabric, the smell of smoke. Each fragment was partial, yet together they suggested a hurried escape into the shadows. She questioned whether the trail belonged to the missing child or if something else was hidden in the woods. The surroundings seemed to conceal secrets, growing more oppressive with each passing moment. A gust of wind swept through the leaves, stirring the air with a fresh, earthy smell, wild, raw, and somewhat unnatural. She crouched lower, her gaze flickering across the darkness, vigilant for movement or recent signs of passage. Her heartbeat stabilized as she concentrated, knowing that even the slightest clue could be vital. The evidence was limited, but justified careful progress. A muffled thud in the distance broke the quiet, a heavy, deliberate sound. Not a branch snapping, but something larger, possibly an animal or a shifting weight. Megan's muscles tensed instinctively. She slowly reached for her flashlight, switching it on silently. The beam pierced the shadows, lighting up moss patches and scattered leaves, but revealing no immediate danger. She advanced cautiously, each step intentional, her ears tuned for new sounds. Near a fallen log, partially concealed among the underbrush, she paused, listening closely. Behind it, the forest stretched into darkness, silent again. She remained still, scanning the surroundings for any movement or signs of recent activity. From her left, just outside her view, came an irregular scrape, something being dragged across the ground. Megan's breath quickened as she shifted or positioned, trying to see without being seen. The forest seemed to hold its breath with her, awaiting the next sign, the next clue. Every sense was heightened, but nothing else moved. Her eyes returned to the spot where torn fabric and footprints had merged. She evaluated her options. Could an animal have taken the child? Or was a nearby intruder still present, possibly fleeing quickly? The scent of smoke indicated recent human activity, but signs of struggle and a frantic trail suggested something more urgent, someone or something in a panic. A sudden gust caused the branches above to sway, casting flickering shadows across the clearing. Megan's skin bristled in instinctive warning. Her gaze shifted toward the denser woods where darkness seemed to pulse with hidden secrets. She tightened her grip on her gear, her mind racing to connect the clues. Suddenly, out of her peripheral vision, she saw a brief movement, a quick, vague shadow prowling between the trees. It could have been an animal or a person just out of sight. Her heartbeat quickened, but she stayed calm, knowing every detail might be crucial. As she turned her attention back to her surroundings, a new idea emerged. The recent fire, torn fabric, and muddy footprints might be connected. Was someone intentionally deceiving her? Or was nature hiding a darker secret beneath its surface? The forest grew quieter, almost holding its breath. She drew a deep breath to steady herself. This moment before an imminent discovery felt crucial. Her senses heightened, her determination increased. Whatever was hiding in the shadows, she was set on finding out. Suddenly, a loud crack sounded through the trees, a deliberate heavy noise, nearer than before. Megan's muscles tensed, and she gripped her weapon more firmly. Her eyes narrowed as she cautiously examined the darkness. The puzzle was far from finished. The forest's mysteries called out, offering answers or more questions. She moved forward slowly, prepared for anything ahead, aware that her next step could change everything. A faint, irregular scratch emitted from her left just outside her sight. She paused briefly, steadying her breath to identify the sound. The woods stayed silent but tense, as if holding their breath along with her. Every nerve was alert, yet no additional movement was seen. Her eyes returned to the spot where the footprints and torn fabric crossed. She considered her options. Could an animal have taken the child? Did someone else, an intruder or protector, escape quickly? The smell of smoke hinted at recent human presence, but signs of a struggle and frantic tracks suggested chaos was unfolding. A sudden breeze moved the branches overhead, casting flickering shadows in the clearing. Megan sensed a prickling at the back of her neck, an instinctual warning. Her gaze shifted toward the denser woods where darkness seemed alive with secrets. She clutched her gear tighter, her mind racing to make sense of the clues. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she caught a brief movement, something large, perhaps an animal, slipping through the trees. Or maybe a person just beyond her reach. Her heartbeat quickened, but her focus stayed sharp. Every detail could be crucial. As she refocused on her surroundings, a fresh theory took shape. The fire-torn fabric and footprints might be staging a false trail. Someone could be intentionally misleading her, concealing a darker truth beneath the forest's quiet exterior. The woods appeared deeper, shadows stretching longer, as if hiding secrets. Her breathing slowed, and she regained her composure. This silent moment on the brink of discovery felt tense. Her senses sharpened, her resolve solidified. Whatever lurked behind the darkness, she was prepared to face it. Suddenly, a loud crack resounded nearby, a purposeful, forceful sound. Megan's muscles tensed as she instinctively reached for her weapon, her eyes narrowing into the darkness. The investigation was far from finished. The forest's secrets called out, offering potential answers and new threats. She hesitated briefly, readying herself for what's ahead, aware that one step could alter everything. The dense canopy above cast a shadowy, oppressive gloom, allowing only faint, uneven light to filter through the leaves. Megan tread carefully, each movement measured, her breathing steady and controlled. Yuki remained silent and watchful, pressing close with nose to the damp ground, intently sensing the environment. The surroundings were still, aside from the subtle rustle of leaves stirred by a gentle breeze. An unsettling silence persisted, interrupted only by a faint metallic scent, lingering in the air, an unnatural trace that made her skin crawl. She halted, eyes darting through the tangled brush with heightened alertness. Shadows moved and flickered, but nothing else shifted except the sway of branches. Her muscles tightened as she listened intently, trying to catch any sound beyond the whispering wind. A sudden sharp crack shattered the silence, causing her to freeze instantly. Yuki's ears perked up and he tensed, hackles rising. Each fragment was partial, yet together they suggested a hurried escape into the shadows. She questioned whether the trail belonged to the missing child or if something else was hidden in the woods. The surroundings seemed to conceal secrets, growing more oppressive with each passing moment. A gust of wind swept through the leaves, stirring the air with a fresh, earthy smell, wild, raw, and somewhat unnatural. She crouched lower, her gaze flickering across the darkness, vigilant for movement or recent signs of passage. Her heartbeat stabilized as she concentrated, knowing that even the slightest clue could be vital. The evidence was limited, but justified careful progress. A muffled thud in the distance broke the quiet, a heavy, deliberate sound. Not a branch snapping, but something larger, possibly an animal or a shifting weight. Megan's muscles tensed instinctively. She slowly reached for her flashlight, switching it on silently. The beam pierced the shadows, lighting up moss patches and scattered leaves, but revealing no immediate danger. She advanced cautiously, each step intentional, her ears tuned for new sounds. Near a fallen log, partially concealed among the underbrush, she paused, listening closely. Behind it, the forest stretched into darkness, silent again. She remained still, scanning the surroundings for any movement or signs of recent activity. From her left, just outside her view, came an irregular scrape, something being dragged across the ground. Megan's breath quickened as she shifted her position, trying to see without being seen. The forest seemed to hold its breath with her, awaiting the next sign, the next clue. Every sense was heightened, but nothing else moved. Her eyes returned to the spot where torn fabric and footprints had merged. She evaluated her options. Could an animal have taken the child? Or was a nearby intruder still present, possibly fleeing quickly? The scent of smoke indicated recent human activity, but signs of struggle and a frantic trail suggested something more urgent, someone or something in a panic. A sudden gust caused the branches above to sway, casting flickering shadows across the clearing. Was this creature a predator or perhaps linked to human activity or secret experiments? The strange chemical odor lingered, now more intense, suggesting unnatural interference. The silence after the howl felt heavy, as if the forest itself was observing her. A movement in her peripheral vision made her turn abruptly. Her eyes narrowed. Nothing, just shadows playing tricks. Still, her instincts warned her. She placed her hand on her chest, feeling her heartbeat quicken, then pressed on, determined to find the truth. Yuki trotted ahead, nose to the ground, tracking the faint scent beyond the footprints. Megan remained close, her senses on high alert. The forest around them grew darker, shadows merging into deeper blackness. The trail Yuki followed was faint, overgrown, and tangled, but his nose led the way confidently, acting as their compass. A gentle breeze moved through the canopy above, bringing a faint metallic aroma more noticeable and almost tangible now. Megan stopped, furrowing her brow as she examined their surroundings. The scent seemed unnatural, overly processed and synthetic for the woods. It heightened their suspicion, hinting at human experiments or secret activities. Suddenly, a subtle cracking noise broke the silence, closer and more intentional. Megan held her breath, muscles tensing, while Yuki's ears pricked up and he let out a questioning growl. A brief pause followed the sound, then whispers of rustling leaves, as if something shifted just out of sight. Her heartbeat picked up. She reached for her flashlight, turning it on softly. Its beam pierced the darkness, revealing uneven terrain and tangled roots. Nothing was in view, only shadows and the faint moonlight filtering through branches. However, her eyes spotted a glint, a large, irregular footprint pressed into the soft soil, partly obscured by fallen leaves. She knelt and brushed away debris and twigs. The print was unmistakably large, broader than her hand, with an uneven, almost distorted shape, neither fully animal nor human. A strange combination that filled her with a sense of unease. Her hand trembled slightly as she looked at it, sensing something unknown had recently passed through. Yuki softly growled, pressing closer to Megan. Silence returned, dense and oppressive. Her thoughts raced to decipher what might be nearby: predator, human, or something else entirely. The chemical smell lingered, stronger and suggesting recent human activity, perhaps an illicit experiment or secret operation. Suddenly, a faint, distant howl pierced the trees again. This time, it sounded different, less sorrowful, more commanding, almost aggressive. Megan's eyes widened as she stared into the darkness. Realizing whatever was out there was now aware of her. She quickly decided she must move, reach higher ground, a vantage point, or a safe place to observe without being seen. Hesitation cost her vital seconds as the forest around pulsated with life, shadows deepening and air growing colder. The large paw print pressed silently into the ground, warning of a creature bigger than a wolf lurking nearby, watching, waiting. Megan grasped her gear tighter, sensing her journey had only just begun, and the forest's secrets were more perilous than she thought. Her awareness expanded, revealing she was no longer alone in these shadows. As dusk thickened the canopy, twisted branches reached like claws, and the damp, earthy scent filled the air. A faint trembling cry broke the silence, attracting Megan forward with an instinct she couldn't suppress. Yuki's ears twitched at the sound, muscles tensed as he sniffed the breeze, catching hints of unfamiliar fear and a sharp metallic scent nearby. Her heartbeat quickened as her boots silenced by leaves and snapped twigs. She moved cautiously, scanning the gloom for signs of danger. The cry sounded again, softer but more urgent, echoing between trees and urging her forward. Doubts raced through her mind. Was it the child or something else entirely? The forest felt alive, whispering warnings in a language only she sensed but couldn't grasp, as if secrets were breathing into the night. Suddenly, Megan found a small hollow hidden beneath tangled branches and thick foliage. Its jagged edges and leaves formed a natural barrier from prying eyes. She edged closer, Yuki nearby with nose to the ground, sensing the urgency. Carefully, she cleared debris to reveal a tiny trembling figure curled inside in silent fear. The child's muddy face was streaked with tears, eyes darting anxiously, but a hint of relief appeared as Megan crouched nearby. "Hey, it's okay," Megan whispered gently, voice calm but reassuring. "I'm here to help. You're safe now." Her hand moved slowly and carefully, avoiding sudden gestures as the child flinched at first, but then relaxed slightly under her touch. Megan felt her chest tighten at the child's delicate vulnerability. She took off her jacket, wrapping it around the shivering child, and looked into the shadows for any sign of approaching danger. The child's trembling voice broke the silence, filled with fear and curiosity. "Big shadow," he whispered hoarsely, clutching Megan's sleeve. "It's watching. I saw it. It's vast and shadowy. It's all around us." His hurried words spilled out, eyes fixed on the darkness beyond the hollow, as if it might swallow them whole. Megan's breath caught with his description, a wave of fear tightening her chest. The boy's words echoed or suspicioned something unseen, lurking in the shadows, maybe a predator or just his fear. She held him tighter, trying to steady her nerves. "Where did you see it? Tell me everything," she asked softly, voice trembling but firm. He hesitated, then shakily pointed toward the shadows, behind the trees, near the big rock. It shifted. I believe it was observing me. I heard breathing sounds. I hurried away, our voice broke, eyes glistening with unshed tears, he said. "I've never seen anything like this before." Yuki's nose twitched suddenly, and he growled low, his fur bristling as he sniffed the air anew. The metallic odor Megan detected earlier intensified, blending with the damp soil and faint rot. Something was definitely wrong. She looked toward the direction the boy pointed, senses alert. Dark shapes flickered at the edge of her sight, testing her awareness, but no clear form appeared, only the heavy darkness pressing in. A sudden crack behind her mate or turned sharply, instinctively grabbing her flashlight. Its beam pierced the shadows, showing only swaying branches and fleeting movement that disappeared before she could focus. Her heartbeat quickened, yet she remained steady, trying to spot the elusive big shadow. The forest's silent menace pressed against her, as if warning her to retreat, but she knew she had to press on. The child softly whimpered, gripping Megan's sleeve tighter. "It's coming," he whispered again, trembling with fear and a glimmer of hope. "You have to go. Please." His plea hung heavily in the air, echoing in Megan's bones. Megan sharply nodded. "We need to leave now. Stay quiet and close." Her thoughts raced, assessing options, aware that whatever was in the dark was beyond her understanding. The shadows flickered with a life of their own, threatening to consume everything in silence and fear. Gently, she lifted the child, pressing him against her side, and signaled Yuki to follow. Each step was cautious and steady as they moved through thick underbrush, away from the hollow and the unseen danger. The child's cry had faded into a tense silence, broken only by the faint sounds of rustling leaves and irregular breathing in the forest. Megan remained highly alert, scanning for movement and listening for any sound. As they ventured deeper into the woods, her mind refused to relax. The faint echoes of that large shadow, the child's trembling voice, and the metallic scent in the air all signaled something deeply unnatural. She realized she was no longer just following footprints or clues. The environment itself was transforming into a more dangerous, unpredictable territory. A sudden crack under her foot froze her in place. Her heart pounding again, she crouched, eyes scanning the darkness for any movement. Nothing could be seen, but the feeling of being watched lingered, thickening the atmosphere with tension. She clutched the child tighter, whispering soothing words to calm both of them. In the distance, a faint glow appeared, a weak light beyond the trees, possibly indicating human presence or shelter. Megan hesitated, torn between heading towards safety or investigating the light. Each second spent deliberating increased the risk of an encounter with whatever was hidden in the shadows. Her instincts compelled her to stay alert, to rely on her senses because the watcher was still nearby, lurking in the darkness. A sudden gust of wind swept through, bringing a cold whisper that almost sounded like a voice not clear, but unquestionably sinister. Megan tightened her jaw, preparing herself. Fear wouldn't control her steps now. The faint hope of safety was fragile but genuine. Shadows grew longer and darker, as if eager to engulf her and the boy. Glancing at the encroaching darkness one last time, Megan hurried toward the faint glow, holding the trembling child close, with Yuki alert beside her. The forest's silent threats still lurked behind the trees, but she refused to freeze. Her goal was simple: find safety, discover the truth, and face whatever lay beyond the shadows. The night was far from over, but one thing was certain: she was no longer fighting alone. The shadows pressed heavily on the treetops as the last remnants of twilight disappeared into impenetrable darkness. Every rustling leaf and distant branch crack sounded louder in the silence, as if the forest held its breath. Megan shivered despite her layers, feeling cold penetrate her bones. Her gaze flickered between the faint moonlight peeking through clouds and the shadows around her, desperately seeking movement. They had chosen this small clearing intentionally, concealed by undergrowth, but offering a good vantage point to listen for approaching sounds. Megan's heart raced, each breath visible in the icy air. Her mind was torn between staying and hoping for the best, or slipping into the darkness and risking losing the child forever. Amir stood alert beside her, jaw clenched, eyes scanning the darkness with resolve and doubt. He broke the silence softly but confidently, saying, "We can't stay here all night. Whatever's coming, human or beast, it'll find us if we don't move." Megan nodded, her hands trembling as she held her jacket tighter. "We must make a quick choice. Remaining here puts us in danger, but fleeing recklessly could mean losing the child amid the chaos." She paused, eyes fixed on the shadows, feeling the heavy burden of responsibility. If we leave now, we might completely lose the trail. Staying risks an encounter with whatever is out there. A gust of wind rustled the trees, carrying a faint chilling sound, a distant rhythmic step. Both froze, listening intently, narrowing their eyes to understand the approaching noise. It grew louder, purposeful but muffled, steady footsteps, heavy and deliberate, coming from the north. "Do you hear that?" Megan whispered urgently, her voice tense and strained. Amir nodded slowly, his face growing more serious. "It could be someone looking for us, or something even worse," she murmured. The moonlight caught a fleeting movement behind the clearing's edge, shadows shifting among the trees. Megan's instincts kicked in again, weighing their choices. Should they hide and hope the figure passes, risking an unseen danger? Or try to signal, risking detection? Her mind hurried to find a plan. "Should we hide?" Amir softly suggested, voice barely audible, "Should we call out or stay silent? If it's rescue, we must be prepared. If danger, silence might be safer." Megan hesitated, then shook her head. "Hiding now is too risky. They could spot us if we move. We must stay put, wait to see who's approaching. If it's hostile, we'll need to be ready." She pulled out her small flashlight, testing its brightness by flicking it on briefly. The flashlight pierced the darkness, illuminating a small area ahead before fading away. She kept it ready, fingers steady to activate at the slightest sign of movement. The footsteps grew clearer and louder. Megan's muscles tensed as her mind rapidly ran through possible scenarios. Was it the villagers? Someone from the nearby settlement, maybe searching for the missing child? Or perhaps something else, an animal or an intruder drawn in by the commotion? Suddenly, a branch snapped nearby, sharply interrupting the silence. Megan's heart jumped into her chest. Instinctively, she directed the flashlight toward the sound, the beam slicing through the darkness. Only dense trees looked back in silence, witnesses to the noise around. The echo persisted, hinting at danger just out of sight. Amir shifted behind Megan, prepared to defend or retreat if needed. The heavy silence dragged on, broken only by distant footsteps echoing in her mind. A shadowy figure appeared cautiously, but with purpose. Its outline was vague, but Megan saw a tall shape in a hooded cloak, face partly hidden. It paused at the clearing's edge, eyes faintly shining in the moonlight as it observed them. Megan's heart raced. She held her breath, waiting for it to move. The atmosphere thickened, each second feeling elongated and tense. Her thoughts quickly considered potential reasons, ally or enemy, safety or danger. The figure moved slightly, voice muffled but clearly human. "Are you Megan?" Her eyes widened in shock, yet she kept the flashlight firm. "Who's asking?" She asked uncertainly, her voice barely hiding her anxiety. After a moment, the figure stepped closer, showing a face partly concealed under the hood. "Amir sent me. I am Samir. I've been observing that creature, trying to uncover what's causing this chaos." Megan briefly looked at Amir, who gave a slight nod. The tension lessened somewhat, but suspicion remained. Why now? Why during the night? Megan asked. Samir spoke softly, because I knew you'd be here, and because whatever's out there, something dangerous, knows we're nearby. We have little time to choose. A distant growl rattled through the trees, muffled but clear. Megan's stomach tightened as the danger behind the eyes seemed inhuman. She gripped the flashlight tighter, narrowing her eyes. What should we do? Face it or slip away? Samir glanced at the shadows and then at them. Staying could alert it. Moving might make us lose it completely. But whatever it is, it's chasing us now. We can't afford any delay. The footsteps intensified, demanding our attention. Shadows darted at the clearing's edge, rushing toward us. Megan's thoughts sped, considering her choices. She had to decide quickly. Taking a deep breath, her voice remained calm despite or shivering. Stay alert. Ready ourselves for what's ahead. If it's human, we'll confront it. If not, we hide or fight, but never run blindly. As she finished, the first figure stepped into the moonlit clearing, tall, still, with glowing eyes reflecting faint light. Its limbs appeared unnaturally long, moving silently and eerily. Megan froze, understanding the truth. This was no ordinary creature. It was a nightmare predator, and their hesitation could be their last chance to decide. Suddenly, the creature's gaze locked onto them, and Megan realized her choice to face or flee would determine their fate, not only for her and Amir, but for the child they aimed to protect. The forest held its breath as darkness threatened to engulf them entirely. The flickering fire cast shifting shadows on the weathered cabin walls, blending with the surrounding dense woods. The air was thick with burnt wood and damp earth scents, and a persistent chill seeped into Megan's bones, despite the warmth of the flames. Outside the door, she kept Yuki alert, ears pricked, eyes scanning beyond the tree line into the darkness. The night was strangely silent, interrupted only by the crackling fire and distant rustling leaves, while Megan felt a persistent tightening in her chest, as if unseen eyes watched her from the shadows. She arrived just an hour ago, following faint footprints veering off the main trail into this concealed clearing. Her heart still raced from recent discoveries, torn fabric scraps, hurried footprints, and a faint chemical smell lingering in the air. She carefully inspected the cabin, her mind racing with questions. Was help finally on the way? Or was she walking into another trap set by unseen enemies? A sudden movement drew her attention. From the darkness, a figure slowly emerged, approaching the fire cautiously and deliberately. Tall, thin, with a face marked by years of exposure, he moved with purpose. Deep lines in his skin suggested hardship, but his sharp eyes scanned the area vigilantly, assessing her in the flickering light. He paused at the edge of the glow, raising his hands in a non-threatening manner. I mean no harm, he said, voice calm yet wary. My name's Marcus. Megan cautiously stepped forward, Yuki tensing beside her. What are you doing here? She asked, voice steady but guarded. The man's gaze shifted past her, scanning the trees, then returned to her face. I've been following something unusual, Marcus replied, his tone tense. I hope to find answers here. His words sounded familiar with the woods, as if he belonged as much to the forest as it belonged to him. Megan hesitated, gripping her jacket tighter. Her intuition urged her to remain vigilant, though hope flickered. Perhaps this stranger had information about the child's location. Did you see the kid? She asked intently. He nodded gradually. Close by, on the eastern side of the woods, saw recent footprints fresh, followed them, but then. The trail disappeared into dense bushes as if someone or something was suddenly pulled away. She furrowed her brow. Are you certain? How can you tell? Marcus indicated the ground. The footprints are fresh, just a few hours old. Large, rapid steps. Plus, there's a chemical, artificial smell, sharp and distinct. It's unlike anything I've smelled before. The scent remains disturbing and eerie. Something feels wrong about this whole place. Yuki growled quietly, nostrils flaring as he sniffed the air close to Marcus. Megan's eyes narrowed. You've been monitoring this for some time. He confirmed once more, a few days. I've noticed signs of human presence, occasional footprints, scattered clues. Usually hunters or loggers passing by. But recently, I've observed peculiar anomalies, unexplained sounds, strange smells, footprints unlike those of locals. Megan listened carefully, considering his words. Her investigation fitted with his account. The forest hid many secrets, and someone or something was intentionally concealing them. Why did you come here now? She asked. Marcus avoided her gaze, eyes darkened. Tonight, I noticed something, an unnatural light deep in the forest. Not a campfire or lantern, but something else. I tracked it, hoping for answers. Instead, I discovered these signs indicating recent disturbance in the scent I mentioned. Whatever is out here has become active again. Megan briefly considered if it was related to the child's disappearance or the strange phenomena she was investigating. The forest was full of clues, and now an outsider with important knowledge offered assistance. She questioned him carefully, have you seen anyone else? He replied, no, but I've heard sounds, noises at night, and branches cracking when no one is near. I also noticed large, heavy footprints, as if someone dragged something or someone. A sudden gust carried a faint metallic smell that made her stomach tighten. She glanced back at the trees, then at Marcus. Why are you telling me this? What do you want? He paused, narrowing his eyes slightly. Because I believe we're aiming for the same goal. I don't want this to end badly for whoever's out here. I've been watching and waiting, trying to piece together what's happening. I don't trust easily, but it's clear you're determined to find that child. Perhaps we can assist one another. Her hand tightened around her coat. The offer was appealing, though her instincts warned her to be cautious. An outsider claiming to know the forest's secrets and proposing partnership, trusting him blindly, could be risky. However, ignoring his help might cost her valuable time and crucial information. Fine, she said carefully, voice calm. Lead me to where you saw the glow. If you're lying, or if this leads us into a trap, I'll leave. Marcus nodded, his face adopting a serious look. Follow me. I know these woods better than anyone. We're running out of time. Whatever's here, it's stirring again. Yuki softly barked and led into the shadows. Megan hesitated briefly, then followed, senses alert. The forest seemed to hold its breath. Shadows flickering at the edge of her vision and whispering secrets she was just beginning to grasp. As they delved deeper, Megan's perception changed. The familiar terrain now felt unfamiliar, filled with unseen threats. Something shifted tonight, an undercurrent of danger, threatening to unravel her understanding of this place and possibly herself. At that moment, she realized her understanding of the forest and her mission had deepened. The clues she had collected were fragments of a larger puzzle, one now involving Marcus, whose expertise could be crucial. Trust remained fragile, but her determination intensified. She would pursue this lead regardless of the risks, as her knowledge of the truth and the child's safety depended on it. Megan paused at the narrow trail's edge, her gaze sweeping the dense canopy above, where early morning light barely penetrated the thick leaves. The forest around her was eerily silent, with the usual chorus of birds and rustling leaves absent, replaced by an oppressive stillness pressing against her. Her breath formed faint clouds in the cool air as she examined faint recent footprints pressed into the damp ground, leading forward with uncertain clarity. A faint metallic scent lingered nearby, subtle yet persistent, hinting at something unnatural hidden in the shadows. Carefully, she knelt, her gloved fingers tracing the delicate impressions. The footprints were fresh, no more than a few hours old, and indicated hurried movement, scuffed edges, and a slight dragging of one foot. Nearby, scattered leaves and broken twigs indicated someone had hurried through the bushes, possibly trying to hide their path. The uneven ground, with roots sticking out like natural hazards, required careful steps. Each movement had to be deliberate. Yuki, her faithful companion, sniffed the air keenly, ears alert, tail low but tense. His nose twitched repeatedly, detecting scents Megan couldn't pick up. The surrounding silence grew heavier, as if the forest was holding its breath. Megan checked her watch, noting the time early, but recent enough for someone to have passed. She thought quickly, considering various scenarios. Was it someone running away or the trail of an earlier visitor? Suddenly, Yuki froze, ears sharply alert as he focused on a patch of disturbed undergrowth a few meters ahead. Megan observed a faint impression in the muddy ground, an irregular, shallow mark that wasn't quite a shoe print, but indicated recent passage. She approached carefully, crouching to examine it closely. The print was too faint to confirm, yet suggested a hurried escape. Her instincts flared with suspicion, and adrenaline surged through her. She quickly sketched the shape in her field notebook, adding notes. The evidence was delicate but promising. Her eyes moved to the nearby trees where broken branches and displaced leaves revealed forceful movement. A sense of urgency grew. This trail was promising but incomplete, leading into dense undergrowth and shadowed hollows with limited visibility. Her gaze detected a faint trail of disturbed leaves and a subtle chemical odor, indicators of unnatural activity in this untouched wilderness. She remembered earlier reports of strange smells and suspected that someone or something had recently passed through, connected to the larger mystery. The scent was a clue, hinting at secret activity. Yuki twitched his nose again and growled softly, steady and low. Without hesitation, he pressed on, nose near the ground, tail stiff. Megan hesitated briefly, then decided to follow him. She adjusted her backpack and stepped onto the trail, sharp senses heightened. The woods seemed to close around her, shadows growing longer as the sun rose higher. Minutes passed as Megan moved carefully, each step deliberate. The trail became less clear, footprints faded into disturbed earth and scattered debris. She stopped at a small clearing where the ground was churned, possibly by someone trying to hide or flee. She inspected the markings, observing their size and orientation, then glanced further to a thicket where branches appeared broken and pushed aside, suggesting hurried passage. A sudden gust of wind rustled the leaves, carrying a faint metallic scent, either rust or old machinery, another unusual smell out of place in nature. Her heartbeat quickened slightly. Each new clue intensified the mystery. She was approaching the location, or at least as close as possible without solid proof. Her phone vibrated softly in her pocket. She took it out, hesitating briefly. The screen displayed a message from her team: potential camp detected, coordinates nearby. Her pulse rose further. She scanned her surroundings, weighing her options. The camp might be abandoned or still occupied. Either scenario made it a promising lead. She took a deep breath to steady herself and nodded firmly. Moving carefully toward the marked spot, she slipped through the brush with quiet purpose. The recent footprints became clearer as she neared a hidden clearing. Evidence of recent presence was unmistakable: a temporary shelter, abandoned clothing, and scattered small objects, proof of a quick departure. Megan knelt down, inspecting the grounds surrounding the camp. New footprints encircled it, heading back into the trees once again. The camp was empty, yet the clues indicated someone had been here just moments earlier. A mix of cautious satisfaction and lingering uncertainty filled her. Who had been here, and where had they gone? Her gaze scanned the scene, looking for anything unusual. A torn piece of fabric fluttered in the breeze. She carefully pulled it from the bushes, feeling the damp, stained fabric, evidence of a struggle. Her mind scrambled to understand what had happened. Someone had been hiding, fleeing, or waiting nearby. Suddenly, a rustling sound froze her in place. Yuki growled low, hackles raised. Megan's pulse sped up as she instinctively grabbed her radio, but paused. Silence enveloped her, heavy with unseen threats. She recognized this was just the start. The trail led deeper into danger and mystery. As she slowly stood, her eyes fixed on the path into the shadows, she realized whoever had been here left more than footprints. They left a trail into something darker. Her grip tightened on her gear as she advanced, committed to following the trail, knowing each step brought her closer to answers and danger. Her perspective had shifted. The case was no longer only about footprints or scents, but about confronting unseen forces. The clues indicated a covert operation or something darker hidden in the woods. Recent disturbances and a strange chemical odor suggested an upcoming confrontation. Moving forward, Megan's focus sharpened. She realized her role had changed. She was now an active participant in solving a mystery that could threaten herself or others. Her awareness grew, and her determination strengthened. Whatever secrets awaited, she was prepared to face them. The forest trail darkened and became more tangled. Shadows stretched longer, and the air grew dense. Megan's senses heightened, her focus unwavering. She understood each clue was part of a larger puzzle. One step could reveal the truth or lead to unforeseen danger. With renewed resolve, she advanced, prepared to face whatever awaited within the woods. The narrow path wound through tangled undergrowth, damp from recent rain, with patches of mud sticking to uneven ground. Megan's boots made soft squelches with each cautious step, her muscles tense from effort and exhaustion pressing down. Yet her eyes stayed fixed ahead, alert and sharp. Her breathing was steady and controlled, trying to steady her nerves as her lungs fought to match her pounding heart. The smell of wet soil and decayed leaves mixed with a faint metallic tang that prickled her nostrils, hinting at violence or bloodshed that might have taken place here. She grasped her backpack straps tightly, her fingers numb but steady. The The faint trail, with footprints pressed into the mud, irregular and hurried, led straight toward the cliffside overlooking the valley. The signs were clear. Someone here recently was fleeing or searching urgently. Megan's gaze shifted between the ground and nearby branches, looking for any recent disturbances. The muddy path showed no obvious clues, yet her instincts warned her of unseen danger nearby. Suddenly, the forest sounds changed. The rustling leaves grew louder before falling silent. Her heart pounded. She quickly hid behind a thick tree trunk, pressing against the bark and scanning her surroundings. Her hand hovered near her radio clipped to her belt, but she paused. Calling for backup could reveal her location. She listened carefully, trying to detect any movement or voices nearby. After a brief moment of silence, a sharp crack broke through. Something metallic or heavy had broken close by. Her body tensed and she moved closer to the tree, narrowing her eyes as she looked into the shadowy bushes. The sound came from behind, somewhere north. Her mind hurried, considering her options: stay hidden or cautiously move forward. The trail led toward the cliff, and retreat wasn't possible. She had to follow to find out what happened. The footprints continued, showing frantic steps with uneven, blurred edges, signs of a struggle or hurried escape. A gust of wind went through the leaves, bringing a scent of damp moss and something sharper, possibly oil, chemicals, or burnt rubber. Megan frowned. This unnatural smell seemed out of place amid the natural decay. Her eyes returned to the footprints as they neared the edge of the cliff. The loose gravel shifted under her boots as she advanced carefully. Every step was calculated and silent, knowing one misstep could reveal her location. A sudden movement in her peripheral vision, a shadow moving behind some bushes, made her stop abruptly, dropping into a crouch. She fixed her gaze on the dark figure, trying to identify if it was an animal or a person. The shape stayed hidden, but the disturbance sharpened her senses. She realized she was close. The trail had brought her here for a reason. The cliff's edge was just ahead, a steep drop into the mist-covered valley beneath. The scene was both awe-inspiring and intimidating, a vast landscape of rocky formations and tangled foliage, stretching endlessly into the distance. Megan's hand brushed the coarse bark of a nearby tree as she moved closer, scanning for recent signs. A faint scuff, possibly from a shoe dragging something across the ground, drew her attention. She crouched lower, approaching the edge with her heart pounding louder than before. Suddenly, a sharp snap sounded beneath her foot. She froze, eyes wide, holding her breath. The unnatural noise echoed through the silent woods. Her mind scrambled to identify it. Was it a branch breaking, a loose stone, or something more threatening? Her muscles tensed, every nerve on high alert. She carefully shifted her weight, trying to minimize noise and avoid detection. Behind her, the sound of rustling grew louder and faster. Megan's instincts told her to fade whatever was approaching, but she kept her eyes on the trail ahead. The footprints disappeared near the cliff, blending into dirt and loose stones, indicating last person's proximity to falling or being pushed. She faced a choice: move forward into the unknown or retreat to reconsider her options. A loud crack shattered the silence behind her, with muffled curses following. Her heart raced. She turned quickly, dropping to a crouch, her eyes scanning the shadows. A figure appeared behind a tree, hesitant and cautious, hands up in a non-threatening manner. Her mind scrambled. Was this friend or foe? The figure's outline was faint, blurred by fading daylight. The stranger paused briefly before moving nearer, their voice raw and tense. "You're near," they said sharply, eyes locked on her. Very near. The words sounded warning, yet urgent. Megan clutched her backpack strap more firmly, instinctively cautious. She examined the stranger, deciding whether to trust or to challenge. "Who are you?" she asked sharply, suspicion evident in her tone. The stranger hesitated, then responded, "Someone who could help or prevent you. It all depends on what you discover at the end of this path." Megan squinted, instincts warning her to be wary, yet something in their voice hinted at honesty. She stepped carefully closer. "What do you know about this, about the trail?" The stranger's eyes shifted toward the cliff's edge. "I know enough to realize some things are better left alone. But if you're persistent, if you truly want answers, the trail leads to more than just a missing child." A breeze blew through the trees, scattering leaves and drawing out the stranger's words. Megan's heartbeat thundered in her ears. The path was nearly finished, but an unseen warning signaled greater danger ahead. She glanced back at the tracks, now faint and partly lost to wind and loose stones, then looked up at the expansive valley below, covered in mist. Behind her, a faint sound arose, gentle but clear, possibly footsteps or something heavier. Her hand clenched the backpack strap. The situation had shifted. She couldn't tell if she was gaining ground or heading into a trap. The trail was nearly over, yet the secret still lurked in shadows, waiting to be revealed. Taking a steady breath, Megan realized hesitation was no longer an option. Night was falling, and whatever was in the woods sensed her presence. Her instincts pushed her forward despite exhaustion pulling at her limbs. She briefly glanced at the cliff edge and the shadowed figure nearby before stepping deeper into darkness, her determination strengthening against the unknown ahead. Megan's eyes stayed fixed on the trembling individual in front of her, the last glow of sunset casting a reddish tint over the rugged cliff. The wind howled loudly, tugging at her hair and coat, as if trying to pull her away from this tense confrontation. The figure tightly held a small dirt-smudged child, their knuckles white, eyes flickering with fear, shame, and regret. "Who are you?" Megan asked firmly but with urgency in her tone. She kept her distance, cautious of sudden moves. Her heartbeat was rapid not from fear, but from the gravity of the moment. The person hesitated, shoulders tight, then finally answered with a trembling voice. "I'm just a villager," they stammered. "I didn't intend for it to escalate this far." Megan's brow furrowed, noticing the rehearsed evasive tone. She studied the face carefully, looking for any signs of lying, but saw instead deep, palpable remorse. The person's hand shook uncontrollably, the child held tightly against their chest with wide, silent eyes. "What occurred? Why did you take him?" Megan asked gently, moving closer with a cautious yet assertive tone. Her attention turned to the child, observing the torn clothing and dirt smudges on his face. The boy's lips parted silently, while the villager's voice faltered. "He drifted too near the forest. I wanted to protect him. He's my nephew. He was curious, and I planned to hide him until the situation eased." Megan's eyes narrowed sharply. "Hide him from whom? Are you talking about the authorities or the village?" The person nodded quickly. "Yes, I believe keeping him here would prevent any harm. I didn't want him to be hurt or worse. I was just trying to protect him." A thick silence fell between them, broken only by the distant winds howling and leaves rustling. Megan's thoughts raced, connecting pieces of the puzzle. This wasn't just a kidnapping, it was a desperate act by someone pushed to the limit, attempting to shield a loved one from invisible dangers. Her intuition suggested the situation was more complicated than it seemed. She carefully moved another step closer. You understand this isn't the correct course. He's scared, but he's safe now. We must lead him back to the village where he belongs. The villager gazed downward, tears forming in their eyes. I never intended to hurt anyone. I believed I was acting in the right. The forest. It's risky. I noticed shadows that shouldn't exist, things I can't explain. Megan's brow furrowed further. What exactly did you see? Please tell me everything. The villager paused, then exhaled slowly as if burdened. Unusual figures moving in the dark, strange noises that don't make sense, and an odd chemical-like smell, unnatural and disturbing. I've lived here my whole life, but recently the woods have changed. Something feels off, and I'm scared of what it might be. A gust of wind blew her hair into her face, making Megan more alert. The man's words matched the signs she'd found in recent days: unusual footprints, strange odors, shadows in the darkness. Still, her attention stayed on the trembling child and the conflicted figure standing before her. Why come here now, after so much time? Megan asked firmly. Why take such a risk? The villager looked away, his eyes fixed on the distant horizon. I noticed something in unusually swift chateau. Then I discovered him here, crying alone. I tried to conceal him until I understood what was going on. I didn't want to lose him or become involved in this mess. Megan examined the trembling figure, sensing the desperation behind it. Yet she also perceived the dangerous obsession and misplaced protectiveness. Her thoughts quickly evaluated the choices, balancing morality and urgency. Listen, she said quietly, you've caused enough damage. Let's move the boy somewhere safe. No one should get hurt, especially him. The man nodded, tears flowing freely. Gently, he transferred the child into Megan's open arms. The boy was exhausted, his eyes blinking rapidly as he clung to her coat, shivering intensely. As Megan held him, she glimpsed the man's face pale, etched with lines, eyes clouded with regret. She sensed his inner conflict, a person torn between love and fear, trapped by circumstances beyond his control. The weight of knowing his desperation might have led him into dangerous situations pressed on her. She turned toward the forest, prepared to lead the boy away, but a strange feeling prickled her senses. Shadows still lingered at the edge of her perception, and the faint, unnatural smell persisted. The man's mentions of shadows and strange chemicals echoed in her mind, suggesting something darker beneath the surface. Stay close, Megan whispered firmly. We're going back to the village, then uncover what's really going on. The villager hesitated, eyes fixed on the distant trees, perhaps troubled by fears or guilt. Megan sensed a change within herself, an awakening to the forest's deeper secrets, and realized the line between safety and danger was much thinner than she thought. Glancing once at the trembling figure and frightened child, she moved ahead, senses alert. The blood-orange sunset cast long shadows on the cliff, hinting at unseen threats in the dark. She knew her encounter was just beginning. Her decisions now could alter everything. As she entered the shadows, Megan's mind raced not only to find the truth, but to stop the darkness from consuming what she loved. The night was falling, and the real fight was about to start. Megan cautiously entered the village square at dawn, shadows stretching on the cobblestones. The crisp air carried the scent of damp earth and dew, a stark change from recent chaos in the woods. Villagers gathered nearby, weary but curious, whispering with questions unspoken. She paused centrally, observing the fragile scene, her mind still haunted by strange footprints and unseen watchers. Their reactions, fear, suspicion, hope drove her to act. Today, she aimed to rebuild trust and narrow the growing divide. Megan softly cleared her throat to capture their attention, her voice calm yet reassuring. "Thank you for being here," she started, voice steady with quiet conviction. "The recent days have been tough for everyone. We've faced fears, doubts, and moments when hope seemed lost. Yet, I believe we've also learned something vital, that respecting nature and understanding the wilderness around us is crucial for our survival and growth." A few villagers looked uneasy, exchanging cautious glances. An elderly man, his face marked by worry and age, hesitantly stepped forward. His voice was gravelly but sincere. "And what do you propose now, Megan? Are we meant to forget what happened? Trust the forest again after everything?" Megan looked into his eyes calmly. "Trust isn't given blindly, it's earned through understanding. The forest isn't our foe. It's alive, strong, unpredictable, and worthy of respect. Recent events remind us we can't control nature entirely. Sometimes it reveals strength unexpectedly, and we must listen carefully." A whisper spread among the crowd. Some faces softened, others stayed cautious. Megan stepped forward, her hands loosely clasped. "I've learned that balance is fragile, and silence and observation teach us more than rushing in fear. That's why I am here, to help preserve what's left and ensure future generations can enjoy this wilderness safely." A young woman holding a child's hand firmly hesitated before whispering, "But what about the footprints? The strange smells? Are we supposed to ignore these signs?" Megan nodded in acknowledgement. "No, pretending they didn't happen won't make them vanish, but understanding their meaning is essential. The footprints and scents indicate that something or someone may still be close by. Our job is to observe, learn, and act responsibly without panic or assigning blame. Patience and careful attention are essential," she said. She pointed toward the woods, their shadows stretching into dawn. "The forest holds many secrets, some forever unknown. Yet, I believe that combining your local experience with my scientific methods can nurture mutual respect and understanding." A quiet pause settled over the villagers as they looked around uncertainly. Some slowly nodded while others hesitated. Megan's words carried cautious hope that positive change is possible if they approach the wilderness and each other patiently. Finally, a younger man, arms crossed and skeptical, asked, "Do you truly believe we can coexist peacefully with the forest after all this?" Megan responded with a sincere, small smile. "It starts with respect, listening, observing, and gaining insight. I don't expect perfection overnight, but understanding is the initial step. Seeing the forest as alive and vital may alter our view of ourselves in this land." The village elder, who had remained silent, slowly nodded in agreement. "You might be right. Perhaps we've been too quick to fear what we don't comprehend. The woods have existed long before us and will endure long after we're gone." A gentle breeze rustled the leaves above, casting shifting shadows across the square. This moment felt like a pivotal point, a delicate seed of change that required care. Megan took a deep breath and offered her gentle commitment. "I'll stay as long as you need," she said, "to listen, learn, and support." We all belong here, sharing its stories, secrets, and future. Let's honor that together." As she finished, a calm acceptance spread among the villagers. Some looked relieved, others thoughtful. Silence lingered briefly before the mood shifted more open and welcoming. The first light of dawn bathed the square in a warm glow, symbolizing hope. Megan watched as villagers gradually dispersed, some nodding or smiling faintly towards her. The woods around her seemed to breathe more freely, shadows less threatening and calmer. For the first time in days, she felt a hint of real hope. Perhaps balance could be restored, and her path toward understanding and trust was just beginning. At that moment, she saw her role changing, no longer merely seeking secrets, but becoming a guardian of trust, maintaining the fragile link between humans and nature. The seed of change was sown, and with patience, it could grow into something lasting. Megan moved purposefully through the dense thicket, the morning sun filtering gently through the treetops, casting flickering patches of light and shadow. The forest thrummed with subtle life, melodic bird songs, leaves whispering in the soft breeze, and distant branch creaks, signaling the day's start. She paused briefly, her eyes scanning the familiar landscape now filled with quiet determination. The tension that had gripped her in recent days seemed to ease, replaced by a calm confidence rooted in her observation of the small signs around her. Her footsteps quiet on the leaf-covered trail as she ventured deeper into the woods. Every step was purposeful and precise. She had mastered reading subtle signs, the faint traces of small creatures, slight movements in the foliage, and trusted her instincts more than ever. The air here felt lighter, filled with the scent of wet earth and blooming plants, a stark contrast to the heavy suspicion that had clouded her mind earlier. She understood the forest mysteries, but also knew that each sound and smell was part of a larger story. Ahead, a small clearing bathed in sunlight appeared. Megan slowed down, narrowing her eyes as she examined the space. It was silent, almost reflective, yet she remained vigilant. Reaching into her pocket, she took out her notebook, noting the sun's position and the arrangement of nearby vegetation. The village stories about the forest's unpredictability flickered in her thoughts, but today she focused on the harmony of the moment, the fragile balance between nature and unseen human activity that might have left clues. A gentle breeze shook the branches, causing leaves to drift slowly downward. Megan took a deep breath, filling her lungs with the cool, crisp air. Her fingertips grazed the rough bark of an ancient oak, grounding her in this living monument. She quickly looked back at the village behind her, distant, peaceful under the rising sun. Suddenly, a faint, almost unnoticeable sound drew her attention. She froze, listening carefully. It was a soft, rhythmic rustle like fabric shifting or a small creature scurrying in the underbrush. Her senses sharpened, she moved silently toward the noise, steps light yet purposeful. The sound led her to a fallen branch, partially concealed by moss and leaves. She crouched, clearing the greenery to reveal tiny, fresh footprints, small, hurried, and recent. The tracks veered off the main trail, heading toward a dense thicket of bushes. Megan's eyes tightened even more. She knelt down to examine the marks, tiny shoe prints, possibly from a child, pressed quickly into the soft ground. Nearby, a faint dirt smear indicated someone had dragged an object across the soil. Her thoughts rapidly connected the clues: an escape or a hurried move out of fear. She reached into her pocket, retrieving a small plastic bag, and carefully collected a soil sample, sealing it thoroughly. Every detail now seemed important: the scent, the footprint pattern, the terrain. As she focused, a subtle, unfamiliar smell caught her nose, a metallic note mixed with chemical residue. Her eyebrows knitted together. This wasn't a natural forest aroma. It suggested human activity, maybe leftover evidence of an earlier disturbance or something more sinister. A flicker of movement behind thick branches caught her eye. Her hand instinctively moved to her gear belt, and she froze, alert. Through the leaves, she caught a fleeting, hurried figure blurt and quickly vanishing deeper into the bushes. Her heart raced, but her face stayed calm. No panic, just increased vigilance. She slowly stood up, looking around carefully. The footprints persisted, guiding her toward a rough shelter made of twigs and leaves, roughly assembled for camouflage. She approached cautiously and knelt nearby. Inside, she detected signs of a recent fire-scorched sticks, ash, and a faint trail of smoke still lingering in the cool air. Recent activity was implied, but no one was present nearby. Her eyes shifted upward, spotting a thin, tangled vine hanging from a branch. She reached out gently, pulling it down to reveal a small folded cloth partly hidden beneath leaves. Carefully unfolding it, she saw a fragment of fabric brightly colored, torn, with dirt smudges and a faint hint of sweat. It might belong to the missing child or someone trying to conceal their trail. A sudden wind gust carried a faint chemical smell just beyond her awareness. Megan's senses heightened again. She knew she had to act swiftly but cautiously. This was no longer simply tracking footprints. It was about interpreting deeper signs, evidence of a hurried departure, a struggle, or secrets buried beneath the surface. She stepped back from the camp, her eyes scanning the forest outskirts. Morning sunlight pierced the branches, casting moving shadows on the ground. Her mind was focused. She realized the forest hid darker secrets. Recent presence suggested an urgent escape driven by fear or desperation. She paused at a broken vine, torn with force, then traced the trail through the foliage toward a rocky ledge. Among the stones, she found a weathered backpack, straps ripped, dirt smudges visible. Carefully, she opened it to find a photograph, torn cloth, and a hastily marked map. This changed her view. This was a hideout or staging area, not just a simple campsite. The map pointed to a route deeper into the woods off official paths. She tucked the items into her pocket, her thoughts swirling with new clues, possibly leading to the missing child or someone with knowledge of secret locations. A sudden sharp noise behind her interrupted her focus, a rustling among the bushes, quick and purposeful. Her hand instinctively reached for her weapon, yet she stayed perfectly still, listening intently. A cautious figure appeared, a young man with suspicious eyes holding a bundle of cloth. His face was smeared with dirt and his hands slightly shook. He slowly raised his hands, speaking hurriedly in a quiet voice. "You're too late. They're gone now, moved further before dawn. I saw them last night, but I couldn't stop them." His voice was tense, eyes flickering nervously. Megan observed him carefully. His look and speech implied he was part of the recent action, but not necessarily dangerous. She eased her weapon and kept her eyes fixed. "Where did they go? Which direction?" she asked quietly. He paused briefly, then gestured eastward, indicating a faint trail among the trees. "They went that way, toward the abandoned quarry. I noticed recent footprints, fresh ones." "You could catch up if you hurry," he said. Without delay, Megan nodded and headed toward the suggested route. Moving forward, she stayed alert, sensing her understanding deepening. Clues indicated a coordinated escape. Someone arrived recently, fleeing from something or someone, leaving signs of haste. As the morning light grew brighter, shadows lengthened in the forest, which was bathed in a golden glow. The rustling leaves and distant bird calls seemed to echo her thoughts of secrets hidden and truths waiting to be revealed. She felt a renewed drive, trusting her instincts and the evidence collected. Reaching the quarry's edge, the terrain widened into a broad rocky area. The footprints persisted here, leading toward a narrow hillside tunnel. She paused briefly to evaluate her next step. The trail was fresh, and a faint metallic scent filled the air, proof her pursuit continued. She took a deep breath to steady herself. The situation had shifted. The evidence she found confirmed recent presence and purposeful movement. Her initial curiosity had grown into a deeper understanding of escape, hiding, and possible threats. As Megan entered the tunnel's shadows, she sensed the forest's secrets closing in. Still, her determination remained strong. She was now a vital part of this unfolding story, engaged in revealing the truth beneath the tangled roots and silent trees. The forest was alive, observing, waiting, and she was prepared to listen.